Imagine an army that began as a seasonal militia of farmers and ended as a professional war machine, capable of controlling half of the known world. This is the story of how the Roman citizen militia transformed into a professional army. We can divide the rise of Rome's professional army into 4 key stages. The story begins with the Roman kingdom, the earliest period of Rome's history. According to tradition, the entire population of early Rome was organized into 300 clans. Every 10 clans formed a curia, and every 10 curiae formed a tribe. In total, there were 3 tribes, each representing one of the original peoples of Rome. Their later Etruscan names are known as Ramnus, Tides, and Luceres. These tribes became the foundation for recruiting Rome's cavalry, while the curiae supplied the infantry. The size of the army of ancient Rome was relatively small, based on a militia system and numbering about 3,300 to 4,000 infantrymen and 300 to 600 cavalry. The army was formed through conscription based on the census. Military service was a civic duty rather than a profession. This system remained in place until the end of the 2nd century BC. At that time, the political structure of ancient Rome could also be described as a military democracy. But this system was more than just a military structure. Through the Comitia Curiata, this ancient levy also confirmed the highest powers of the Roman state, approving consuls, praetors, and even decisions about adoption and inheritance. For centuries, this curiate levy formed the backbone of Rome's military and political order, until the first great reforms began to reshape the Roman army forever. The 6th of the 7 kings of Rome came to the throne. The Roman army underwent major reforms. A fundamental transformation began. The reform of King Servius Tullius divided Roman citizens into classes based on wealth. The civic militia was now organized according to a property census. Society was divided into 5 classes, which determined a citizen's political rights, military obligations, and taxes. The greater a man's wealth, the higher his class, and the more votes he held in the comitia, the popular assemblies of ancient Rome. The first class included citizens whose property was valued at no less than 100,000 bronze asses. The second class possessed at least 75,000 asses. The third class, 50,000 asses. The fourth class, 25,000 asses. The fifth class, 11,000 asses. All the poorest citizens belonged to the sixth class, the proletari, whose only wealth was their offspring. Each property class was required to provide a specific number of military units known as centuries. The first class supplied 80 centuries of infantry, the core of the army, as well as 18 centuries of cavalry, making 98 centuries in total. The second class provided 22 centuries. The third class, 20 centuries. The fourth class, 22 centuries. The fifth class, 30 centuries of lightly armed soldiers, plus 1 century of proletarians. A total of 193 centuries. In battle, the Romans fought in the Greek phalanx, a dense formation of heavily armed warriors. The Romans adopted this system from the Etruscans and from Greek colonists in southern Italy. But as the Roman state expanded and its wars grew larger, Rome began facing enemies against whom this rigid system proved too slow. And once again, the Roman army began to evolve. The manipular tactic emerged considerably later, during the era of the Roman Republic. Marcus Furius Camillus is traditionally regarded as the reformer who replaced the phalanx with maniples. He is believed to have adopted this formation during the Samnite Wars, roughly in the mid-4th to early 3rd century BC. The reason for this change was warfare in mountainous terrain, where a continuous wall of shields, the phalanx formation, proved cumbersome and ineffective. The legion was now divided into 30 maniples, small tactical units arranged in a checkerboard formation known as the quincunx. When the front line became exhausted, it was replaced by the second line. If an attack failed, the formation could reorganize and renew the assault. This represented a major tactical breakthrough. However, the army still remained a citizen militia. Men came for a campaign and then returned home. The manipular system allowed the Roman army to become far more flexible by dividing the legion into smaller tactical units capable of operating independently. With the emergence of the manipular formation, Rome achieved victory in the 3 Punic Wars against Carthage, a powerful Phoenician state of the time. As a result of these 3 wars, Carthage ceased to exist as an independent state, while the Roman state expanded its borders and took control of Sicily, Sardinia, and Corsica, Hispania, and North Africa. After the Punic Wars, Rome was no longer a small city-state. Wars became longer. Garrisons had to be maintained for years. Armies required a permanent presence. Yet the soldier was still a farmer. He could not fight indefinitely. He had to return to his land. Rome faced a choice: either limit its expansion or fundamentally change the structure of its army. And at this moment, a man appears on the stage of history who would overturn the entire system.
Gaius Marius did what had once seemed impossible. He opened recruitment into the Roman legions to the proletarii, the poorest citizens of the Republic. From this moment on, men without land or property could enlist in the army. The state now took responsibility for the soldier. It provided weapons and equipment, paid regular wages, and promised land after the completion of service. Military service became longer, and the Roman army gradually transformed into a professional force. The soldier was no longer a temporary member of a citizen militia. He became a career military professional. The legion itself evolved into a permanent combat unit. During the reforms associated with Gaius Marius at the end of the 2nd century BC, the cohort system became firmly established within the Roman army. Cohorts gradually replaced maniples as the primary tactical units of the legion. Although cohort-sized groupings had existed earlier, the Marian reforms helped standardize their use across Roman legions. The essence of the change was organizational. Instead of the smaller manipular formation, the legion was increasingly structured around larger and more flexible units called cohorts. A cohort typically consisted of 3 maniples and usually numbered roughly 480 soldiers, though the exact size could vary. By the late 2nd century BC, the cohort had become the foundation of Roman battlefield organization, providing greater tactical flexibility and stronger operational cohesion. Later, during the reign of Augustus, beginning in 27 BC, the Roman military system was further stabilized and professionalized. Specialized formations also appeared, including elite units such as the Praetorian cohorts that served as the emperor's guard. A standard legion was organized into 10 cohorts. The first cohort was the most prestigious and often stronger than the others, while the remaining cohorts followed a more standard structure. Altogether, a legion usually fielded around 5,000 heavily armed professional soldiers. Their equipment was standardized. Their training was systematic. Discipline was strict. Legionaries trained constantly. They marched long distances, often covering dozens of kilometers in a single day.
Every evening they constructed fortified camps. This was no longer simply an army. It was a highly organized military machine capable of sustained campaigning across vast territories.
Rome was now capable of maintaining dozens of legions simultaneously across its territories, from Britain to Egypt. Yet the reforms carried an unintended consequence. Legionaries often became loyal not primarily to the Republic, but to the generals who commanded them. Professional armies would later support figures such as Sulla and later still Julius Caesar. In time, the growing independence of military power became one of the factors that contributed to the collapse of the Roman Republic. Rome created an army ahead of its time, but with it, Rome also created the mechanism for military-backed political revolutions. Rome survived and eventually became an empire because it knew how to adapt. It was not afraid to transform its military system. It was not afraid to break with tradition, and it was not afraid to arm the poorest citizens. That is why the Roman legions became a symbol of discipline and power for centuries to come.